So Dr. van der Merwe was one of your students, is that correct?
That's correct, my lord.
Now, specifically in paragraph 18, you refer, paragraph 18, page 24 of 33, you list it as invited DNA expert witness and evaluator of evidence in selected criminal cases. Why do you use the word invited?
My lord, by lack of a better phrase, I used the word invited. In hindsight, I could have said called but I chose at the point of when I started to list the cases that I was involved in, invited, because I cannot report for a case. I have to be contacted by an instructing attorney. My lord, I will make a note of that. Or appointed, or...
So you were, in actual fact, you weren't an invited guest as similar to a seminar or a symposium or a presentation. You were hired by the defense as an expert witness and you were compensated for the service.
Did you testify in all these cases for the defense?
My lord, I've never testified for the defense, and I've also never testified for the prosecution. And I just belabor this point. I was called by the defense to testify.
You were hired by the defense?
And I was indeed paid for my services, correct.
You were hired by the defense to testify?
I was called by the defense to testify, yes, my lord.
Why are you running away from the word hired?
My lord, hired, for me, I will have to think about, but it means something different in my mind.
There's nothing sinister about it. You were hired and you were paid for your testimony. That's not correct.
My lord, I'm paid to be in court. That is correct. I'm not paid for the exact words.
No, that's correct. I mean, but you were never hired by the state.
I've never been called for the state, by the state, my lord. But if I would be called, I would be more than willing to do so. Because a scientist, as an expert,
the state may not be able to afford your services.
My lord, I do pro bono work for legal aid. So whether I'm called by the defence or the state, an expert witness's position is that you must be in court to just literally assist the court, nothing else.
So tell me, sorry.
What's the difference between 18.1 and 18.2?
My lord, in some of the cases where I was involved, I did not actually have to testify. I was merely called to evaluate the forensics evidence, and then, for instance, in State versus Parker is a case that was here in the then High Court of the Cape of Good Hope. I, after the State's case, the defence's advocate indicated that it was not necessary for me to testify. So sometimes I'm only contracted then to sit in court to listen to the DNA evidence of the state's expert. Sometimes I am given transcripts and asked to evaluate that. And in the case of 18.3, we literally just look at the 212 affidavits on DNA evidence and then provide feedback verbally even to the people in legal aid, the legal professionals.
These, the 18.2, are some of the most high-profile cases that were heard in this very courtroom, I think. My lord,
forgive me, but I don't recall which court these cases were.
Yes, no, you wouldn't, but this is courtroom number 1. Yeah.
Dr. August, it is also with reference to the case that you testified to or not, that was my next question, that you note state this is van der Vyver, and our information was that you were not in court when the state's witnesses testified.
That's correct, my lord. I
Your
wasn't.
name or your involvement didn't come up during the course of the trial, and you were also not present when the defense counsel consulted with Colonel Otto on the DNA evidence.
My lord, that all is correct, and be that as it may, the defense advocate, the brain, consulted with me about the scientific method, how the scientific method operates. So I was involved in the evaluation of some of the data. He contacted me and asked for whether I could help him, and I said this is beyond my field of expertise. He would need a different type of experts to help him, but I did speak to him about the scientific method.
And according to the record of state, Mrs. Corey, it appears that you did not testify, that's correct, but you were in court when the state witnesses with regards to the DNA testified. Was, I don't want to demote them, but it was Phillips and Superintendent.
My lord, my recollection is also that I was in court and did not testify, as it is indicated on my CV.
Dr. August, have you ever, in the course of your experience, done a proficiency test, either internal or external, as to your capabilities in practical laboratory work?
My lord, I've already testified that I have, my lord, if I may just get permission to sit down again.
Certainly.
I have, thank you.
Please, you don't have to ask me. When you walk into the box, you can sit down.
Thank you, my lord. I've testified before that I've never worked in a forensic laboratory. As such, I've never done a proficiency test in any of the aspects that are involved in this case. I have testified already that my career was that of a research scientist, an academic, and I do not run a diagnostic laboratory. So in my research work, no, we do not do proficiency work, proficiency tests, in the sense that that the state is asking.
The simple answer is you haven't done
No.
proficiency tests.
No.
And would I be correct, or would you agree that your experience is more on an academic world? Training, teaching, overseeing, teaching?
My lord, if one were to discount the 18 years that I've been involved in doing court cases, then yes, my experience is purely academic.
But even
In the academic world. In the practical sense that I've done, I have already testified to that, and then I've been doing court cases since I was employed at the University of Pretoria, and if my calculation is correct, that's about approximately 18 years.
But also even in your court cases, Dr. August, you don't do for instance, what the laboratory does in the FSL. You receive samples, you analyze them, you take them through the whole process, you get raw data, and you interpret the data.
My lord, similar to what Lieutenant Colonel Otto testified to, she gets the electropherograms and she gets the sample status reports. She then interprets that. That is similar to what I do in court cases, although sometimes we discover further evidence, further data related to a sample, not only the electropherogram and the sample status report. But I have not performed work in a forensic laboratory. That is true.
Your academic training and experience, Dr. August, does that also include anything with regards to statistics and the use thereof?
My lord, I'm not a statistician, and perhaps I should have made the disclaimer at the beginning, or not disclaimer, but I should have stated the following, since this is has been asked of me in the past, together with the statistics question, that I also don't testify on behalf of any body, a specific body, SANAS, SACWA, the University of Pretoria, or any other body. I'm not a statistician. I don't have a statistics degree. The statistics knowledge that I have is what I have acquired over my research career, and then
Do you have a statistician on your team?
I do not have a statistician on my team.
To go back to your mandate in the specific case currently before court. You describe your mandate in paragraph 2.1.1 of Exhibit EE.
My Lord, if I may, if it's allowed, if I may go back to my previous answer and just expand on that. About the statistician, I do not have a statistician on my team. Over the course of my practice in forensic science, however, I have picked up certain forensic statistics experience, and we now train forensic scientists in that forensic, what we call forensic statistics. So in other words, the statistics that is required to generate a 212 affidavit.
But in the field of genetics and DNA work, all DNA teams throughout the world have a statistician as part of the team.
Yes, my Lord, when I was in academia, we indeed worked closely with the statistics groups in the universities, because we did need that, in fact. But after leaving academia, I have not employed a statistician.
Back, Dr. Walters, to my next question. Your brief in this matter, or your mandate, you described that in paragraph 2.1.1, that you've been asked to assess the scientific validity of the results reflected in Lieutenant Colonel Otto's work, reports. That was your mandate, as set out in Exhibit EE, is that correct?
My Lord, that is correct, as it's set out in EE. I have explained to the court, or I have indicated to the court over time how the scope of our mandate was narrowed, and actually it started right in the beginning with the discovery process.
So that is what I want to ask you, Dr. Walters, is what you write in paragraph 2.1.1, is that your initial mandate, or the mandate you ended up with eventually when you drafted Exhibit EE?
My Lord, this was my initial mandate, because I say I've been, and I quote, I've been asked to assess the scientific validity of the results. I hesitated there to write all the results, because that's not how it turned out. In terms of how the scope of the mandate changed over time.
And the change, Dr. August, is that if the mandate changed from testing the scientific validity of the process, or just from the number of samples that was included in the process that you had to test the validity of?
My Lord, it changed definitely with regard to the number of samples, but also with regard to the process, because there were SOPs that, even though we requested it right in the beginning, at the end we still did not receive it. So we could not verify that part of the process.
The SOPs that you referred to that you did not receive, were those related to the non-conformance or conformance?
My Lord, I will just have to verify. There were a number of SOPs that we did not receive ultimately, and I will need time to just verify that. But
we will get to you. Maybe you can check up later, Dr. Walters. So, would you describe as the test the scientific validity of the results obtained, Dr. Walters? Would it be correct to say that you were asked to test and or verify verify the processes used by the FSL in obtaining their results as set out and interpreted in Colonel Orton's 4 reports?
My Lord, yes, I was asked to verify that the results that were generated and that were submitted in the affidavits of Colonel Otto, that they were done according to the standards of the laboratory. So the quality manual, as it contains also SOPs, and then 17025 that the lab stated that they adhere to.
Now, a lot of mention is made in the report and a lot of questions was asked of Colonel Orton on the subject of accreditation of the laboratory. What is your view on the accreditation of a laboratory?
My Lord, a laboratory that is accredited has been assessed by an independent body, such as SANAS in South Africa, SANAS, the South African National Accreditation System, SANAS. So it's an independent body that verifies that the laboratory operates in compliance with its own quality manual, so basically in compliance with ISO Guide 17025, which then states that a laboratory should have a quality manual, and usually part of that quality manual is the standard operating procedures. So in this case, the laboratory also indicated that they did comply with 17025. So accreditation is then that independent audit, and 17025 is often described as the minimum standard that should be in place. So it's a verification that the minimum standard according to which a laboratory needs to operate in order to generate valid results, that those standards are in place, and on the day of accreditation, those standards are followed. It does not guarantee that every result ever coming out of that laboratory is correct. But on the day of assessment, at least, it proves that an independent body found that the minimum standards are in place and that they were followed. There's several audits are done, horizontal audits, vertical audits. Analysts are asked to perform certain tasks in front of the assessor. All of that needs to be in order. And usually at the end of an accreditation visit, two findings are made, whether the laboratory fulfills the criteria or not. And if it does not yet, then whether the non-conformances that were found on the day are minor or major non-conformances. Major non-conformances are usually the non-conformances that can affect the outcome of a result.
Dr. August, I don't think you understood my question because you didn't answer it. You now described to the court the process of accreditation. My question to you was, what is your view of accreditation? Colonel Otto, when asked the same question, said, I think it's a nice to have thing. It will curb cross-examination on accreditation. What is your view on the purpose of accreditation? Is it something that a lab needs, must have, or nice to have?
My Lord, I absolutely do not agree that it is a nice to have. When one looks at the international standard, and I must refer to the international standard because the ISO guide is an international standard, it is common practice for national forensic laboratories to be accredited, because accreditation, in my view, is essential for forensic laboratories because it shows the public, the court, the accused, anybody of the public that the minimum standard is in place. It does not mean that, so for instance in South Africa it's not legally mandated to be accredited. However, The same kits that are used by the FSL, is by the Forensic Science Laboratory, is used by paternity laboratories, and those are accredited. So we expect, in South Africa, have come to expect paternity laboratories to be accredited, but the forensic laboratory is not accredited. So, following the international guideline, I would say, my opinion is that forensic laboratories need to be accredited.
And even if, as you testified earlier, Dr. August, it only means that on that specific day, when the independent auditor arrived at the laboratory, they comply. If they comply before that, do not comply before that date or after that date, it doesn't matter. At least on that one instance, they comply.
My Lord, yes. On that specific day or days, however long it may take, they comply. More importantly, it ensures all of us that the minimum standard is in place. So if there is a non-conformance, or if an error is made, that there is a system in place that will pick up that error.
So who audited your laboratory?
My Lord, I do not have a forensic laboratory.
But the work you do, who audits that?
So, a research laboratory cannot be accredited, so I want to start there and say,
Who audits, who audits it as the correct word? Who monitors what you do?
so, my Lord, I am registered with the Health Professions Council.
Do
So-
they audit what you do?
No, well, in the following way, they make sure that I'm aware of the international standards, because we have to do what we call continued professional development points per year, and we have to do 30 of those points, and I stand to be corrected, but I think 2 of them needs to be in ethics, or 2 or 3 or 5, I stand to be corrected. So there is no entity that audits a research laboratory, so also not mine.
So you must accept your ethics as professionally correct. If you say it's professionally correct, then it's professionally correct.
My Lord, if it's not professionally correct, then I would have assumed that either my clients or my peers would have reported me to the HPCSA. Because that is how
But the court has to accept your word that you work according to the rules that are laid down for your profession.
My Lord, I can give no better answer than to say that there is no body, not meaning a person, no body that inspects research laboratories.
You see, in,
So
in
our
this
work-
case, sorry, finish on.
So our work, for instance, when we do research, our work is reviewed by our peers in the field. So for instance, were I to write a scientific paper, that paper is reviewed by the peers in my field. And should they, during the review, find that they have further questions, they can also always pose that via the editor of the journal to which it's submitted. But there is no auditing body that comes to a research laboratory, and I think that is the question.
So you've already testified that there is no legal requirement for a forensic laboratory to be accredited by SANAS or any other independent body.
My Lord, that isn't be true for South Africa.
For South Africa, yes.
So does it follow then that every forensic result emanating from the forensic laboratories in this country are not acceptable to you?
Absolutely not, my Lord.
So every single case where the forensic laboratories in this country testify, you would say they're not scientifically valid results?
My Lord, I would say that if they follow the standards that they mention that they follow, or that they state, they follow the SOPs, Colonel Otto testified that if her SOP is a strict guideline that she has to follow, and I will have to look for her words because I obviously
That's
don't have a
fine.
transcript
It's fine,
in front of me. But if the SOPs are not followed, she will also not accept the results. So if the laboratory says that they have SOPs that they have to adhere to, and if they say that they follow 17025, then if they follow that is the standard according to which they are measured. My Lord, if I may make a reference, please, to one document that I just have to look for. SOP file. Thank you, my Lord. My Lord, in my young days, I could recall these things off the top of my head. I need a moment. My Lord, in the SOP bundle, on page 22, I refer to the evidence recovery SOP, bio 0008P, paragraph 6. And the court has the entire SOP in front of it. I hope I'm allowed just to quote one or two sentences. It starts with the biology section advocates a policy of optimal examination of the specific circumstances surrounding a case. Due to the high cost involved in DNA examination, together with the increasing caseload, it is of cardinal importance that only uncompromised exhibits are examined and that the cases are handled according to standard operating procedures. My Lord, I must confess, there are other SOPs I want to refer to, but I just have no idea where to look at this moment.
No, I'm just trying to ascertain from you. Sorry.
So if the laboratory states that they must adhere to to their set of SOPs, that is the standard to which I have kept or assessed or audited them. And then if they say they must adhere to ISO 17095, then that is also then the standard that I would have looked at.
So does that follow that not all results emanating from the scientific laboratories are invalid?
My Lord, not all the results would be valid if the SOPs are followed, so if the quality standards are followed, and if 172 are followed, then those results would be valid. And I would be the first one to argue that there are valid results generated in every laboratory, but in the cases where it does not meet their own standard, then those would be invalid.
So Dr. August, I just want to make sure, in terms of the SAP Service Act, Chapter 5, Section 15, capital P, it's Act 68 of 1995, it says the compliance with quality management system is compels them to develop and recommend standards for quality management, including standards for testing the proficiency of the forensic science laboratories and the forensic analysts conducting the forensic DNA analysis. Would that kind of description with quality management systems satisfy your need for a quality management system?
My Lord, I must confess I have never looked at the act that the state is referring to. At a scientific level...
Look at it. Can you do it? I can just have a look at the act, see if it's correct.
Add to that, Dr. August, in terms of that act, regulations were issued.
My Lord, can you just repeat the reference to that, please?
Certainly,
So, my Lord,
let's give the reference.
SA Police Service Act, Act 68 of 1995. Chapter 5 thereof, specifically section 15, 1.5 capital P. And then there are regulations that were issued under the same Act with regards to forensic analysis. I have also added a copy thereof to Dr. Alford, that is the only requirement prescribed in the regulations, and it is in Government Notice R207, published in Government Gazette, number 38561, dated the 13th of March 2015, section 7 thereof. It says that DNA analysis must, and it's an obligation, be performed in accordance with the quality management system based on ISO 17025. And according to Lieutenant Colonel Otto, that is what the laboratory does.
So, my Lord, I am not a legal scholar, so I don't
But is that the law as you see it?
That is what I see. But does this mean at the legal level that the forensic
That
laboratory...
the court will decide, but
Yeah.
it just tells you that's correct, that as Ms. Galloway puts it,
Yes,
that is the
it says
legal decision.
Yes, it is exactly as she quoted it.
And
So why have we never looked at that? That's the legal parameters of what is to be done.
So, my Lord, this is the South African Police Service Act. In forensic science, we know that it is ISO 17025 that we must adhere to. And when I've asked my colleagues at the FSL before, they have indicated that they have standing orders and that they follow 17025 and that they have a quality management system as prescribed by 17025. So the issue in the forensic science sector is whether you follow 17025 then or not, which I now see that they, from a scientific perspective, it seems as though they must follow that.
I'm first trying to figure out, how are you not aware of that? You're an expert in the field.
My Lord, I was not aware of this act and that it was mandated from them. When I've asked them what laws they operate under, they would say the Criminal Procedures Act, the South African Law of Evidence, and then since SANAS mandates that labs be accredited and they want to be accredited, they work under 17025.
But that act deals specifically with the scientific validity of results. Is that not so?
My Lord, this act seems to be, and I may be wrong, but it seems to be the act that we refer to as the DNA Act.
Yes, precisely. That's the law that governs how these things are to be
Yes,
researched.
so this act, my Lord, at some point I had read through it. I was just not aware of this 17025
Oh,
requirement.
so you are aware of the act.
I'm aware of the DNA Act, not
So
the
now,
exact wording.
how come you're not aware
of the regulations?
of the regulation which precisely prescribes how these procedures are to be conducted?
My Lord, I can only say that I'm
It's an
not...
omission on your part. Sorry?
I can only say that I was not aware that 17025 was mentioned in the regulations. And if I was aware of it,
How could you not be aware? You're an expert in the field.
my Lord, at the scientific level, I knew that they had to comply with 17025.
Yes, but that's
because-
precisely the point. This act deals with the scientific level of evaluation.
My Lord, if I may just have time to look at the Act. If
Yes,
it is-
certainly have a look at it, but take your time.
So if I am correct, this is the Act dealing with the DNA database, the Act that made it legal for the DNA database to be used in court. And it talks about
sorry, Dr. Alford, to interrupt you. The one that you're looking at is the regulations.
the regulations, I understand.
Issued under the Police Service Act with regards to DNA evidence. And the only requirement prescribed for the FSL laboratories in South Africa is that they must do their analysis in accordance with the quality management service or system based on ISO 17025.
Yes, I see that now, my lord, and I take note of it.
You see that now?
Now,
That the 1705 is actually in the regulations.
I just want to make sure that I understand your evidence with regards to following ISO 17025 or not.
Yes, it,
Thank you, my lord.
Doctor?
Do I need to give this back?
well, up to you if you don't need it.
It's fine. Just for record, it's not a complete act. It's a bit, I'm also under financial constraints to print out the whole research act. Dr. August, just so that I understand your comments correctly on ISO 17025 and whether the laboratory follows that. Having had insight into the SOPs of the laboratory, as I understand you, that is the quality management system of the laboratory, the SOPs, standard operating procedures.
My lord, there are several parts probably to the quality management system. The SOPs certainly form a part of that.
So, having had regard to the samples and the paper trail applicable in this specific matter, if the laboratory follows the SOPs, which are in line with ISO 17025, or do you agree with that? That the SOPs are in line with ISO 17025?
My lord, the SOPs should be in line with 17025. The reason I cannot say they are is because I don't understand. If the SOPs were in line with 17025, then the discrepancies that was pointed out should have been picked up.
Okay, we're not talking about discrepancies. I'm in general asking you, having had insight in this matter, in the SOPs and the paper trail, as an expert DNA auditor of DNA analysis, Dr. August, would you say that the SOPs conform to ISO 17025 guidelines?
My lord, given my previous answer, the only answer I can give now is yes, they are in compliance with 17025, but not fully. Because had they been fully in compliance with 17025, the non-conformances that we picked up, according to paragraph 4.9.
They're either in compliance or they're not. You said not fully in compliance, but they're not in
So
compliance.
some of the SOPs may indeed be in compliance with 1705.
Some of the SOPs.
Yes, so whether they are followed or not is clear in this case that some SOPs were not followed.
I don't want to interrupt you then, Dr. August, but the answer is, the question is quite simple. We will get to the merit or not of whether the laboratory did follow the SOPs or not. We will get to that later. At this point in time, all that I'm asking you, given the prescription requirement that the laboratory has to have a quality management system in line with ISO 17025, the question is simple. Having had insight into the SOPs, are you of the view that those SOPs are in line with ISO 17025 guidelines?
My lord, I can only answer the following. I've not seen all the SOPs in the laboratory. The ones that I have seen, there are aspects where I don't understand how they can be in compliance given what is said in 1705. And unfortunately, I cannot clarify this further or in more detail.
So you have the view that the SOPs are not in line with ISO 17025?
My lord, I've already answered that. I cannot say that all the SOPs are not in line. I cannot say that all the SOPs are in line.
You see, it was never put to Colonel Otto or Captain Hubert or Warrant Officer Nell, anybody from the forensic science laboratory who testified. It was never put to them that you say you have to work in terms of ISO guidelines, but you don't in actual fact work according to ISO guidelines, because your SOPs are not in line with ISO guidelines.
My Lord, I think I'm being asked a question of why council did not pose a question, and I cannot.
No, just answer the question as it's put to you, please. Now, put the question again to the witness.
When Colonel Otto, Captain Hubert and Warrant Officer Nell testified, all three of them employed by the Forensic Science Laboratory, it was never put to them that listen, you say you work according to the ISO 17025 guidelines, but your SOPs are not in line with ISO 17025.
My Lord, why that was not said, I don't understand. I cannot tell. I am also not fully aware of all the testimony of Hubert or Nell, but I accept what the state is saying, that it was never put to them.
With all due respect, you are the expert. You are the person who did a forensic or an audit of the lab's processes. You are the expert who advise the public.
Look, I know it's study out of audit, but my Lordship, I want to place an objection on record. My learned colleague was not present when Captain Hubert testified.
He wasn't, yeah.
So I would know. I invite my learned colleague to point out to your Lordship where Captain Hubert ever referred to ISO 70025. It never came into, he never referred to it with respect. So with respect, now to say to the witness, we should somehow have suggested to him that the ISO 70025 is in conformity or not conforms with the SOPs or vice versa. With respect is irrelevant because that never was mentioned during his evidence. And similarly, with that of Warrant Officer Nell. The only person referred to ISO 17025 was Lieutenant Colonel Otto. So first of all, my learned colleague's statement is factually incorrect.
My Lord, I merely put the three witnesses' names to the witness.
First, let me just rule on the... Oh, sorry, you want to reply?
As they are the people employed at the Forensic Laboratories, Science Laboratory. I mean, no way infer or trying to state to the witness that it was put to, that was part of their evidence. I'm just saying those are the three people it should or could have been put to. It was not put to them.
Thank you, Mr. Breda.
With respect, that's not the point. It's simply now asking this witness why, out of the three witnesses, I told two of them, I did not make a certain statement of fact to those witnesses when that statement of fact was wholly irrelevant in the contents of what the witness testified about.
Mr. Breda, you can argue that at the end of the matter. The question of relevance at this stage is issue its cross-examination. You may put the question. You may proceed.
Thank you. Dr. August, the reason for my question is throughout your evidence and throughout your advisement, because you sat in court when Colonel Otto testified, correct?
Correct, my Lord.
You sat next to counsel cross-examining Colonel Otto, is that correct?
That's correct, my Lord.
And I noticed that throughout cross-examination you passed him papers, you spoke to him, so you advised him on what questions to ask.
My Lord, the key word being advised, counsel did not...
No, but the issue is simply this. Did you pass notes to him and advise him?
Yes.
Simple.
It doesn't mean that he
doesn't follow your advice always.
that he posed those questions.
But he didn't always follow your advice. That's what you suggested.
With great respect to counsel, I cannot, my Lord, I am the DNA expert, I'm not the one making the strategy, so that's what I'm pointing out.
See, sorry, Dr. August, the problem that I have is throughout all this process, you tested the laboratory against the SOPs and the ISO guidelines, correct?
That is correct, my Lord.
Never once was it put to Colonel Otto, listen, you say you work in terms of the guidelines, you work in terms of SOPs, but you don't, in actual fact, your SOPs don't even align with ISO guidelines. Did you advise counsel of that stuff?
My Lord, now I have to go back in my memory for quite a bit. I cannot recall whether I specifically advised counsel of that or not. I must have pointed out that the SOPs are a problem because of the non-conformances that we picked up that was not picked up. How I phrased my advice to counsel, I cannot recall word for word. But that there is a problem with the SOPs, that was clear because the non-conformance is slipped through, whereas the SOPs clearly state that if a non-conformance is detected, and the system must be in place to detect these non-conformances. I hope I have now answered it.
Let's move back to your viewpoints on accreditation of the laboratory. Dr. Walters. If my memory serves me, I've already answered in that direction, but not in so many words, that accreditation is important to me. Accreditation of the laboratory.
Yes, my lord, in forensic science, accreditation is important to a laboratory.
I note in your CV, Dr. Walters, that you are extensively involved in the development or setup of SANAS.
My lord, I'm not involved in the setup of SANAS. SANAS existed long before I became involved with SANAS. I merely, so I served as a technical assessor for them. Technical assessor. So, but that was for medical laboratories, which then included laboratories doing paternity work, paternity testing using these same kits. I also are involved or were involved in one other committee called the Specialist Technical Committee for Medical Laboratories of SANAS. And now I'm involved in the Specialist Technical Committee of Forensic Science of SANAS. So these STC, Specialist Technical Committees, are the bodies that decide what is the standard according to which, how do we translate 17025 to our, shall I say, current context.
I want to put you, Dr. Walters, please have a look at your CV again, starting at page 5 of 33. Paragraph 8.1.16.
My lord, if I can just for a moment get there.
Page 5 of 33 notes, and it's your A01, exhibit triple E.
Page. My lord, may I ask which page?
5 of 33. The very last paragraph.
Yes.
You specifically note the South African National Accreditation System, SANAS, the technical assessments for accreditation of medical laboratories to the ISO 17025 and ISO 15189 standards from 2001 to 2011.
Correct, my lord. That was as in medical laboratories. I was a technical assessor.
Were you involved with SANAS from 2001?
That's my recollection as per my CD, my lord.
We move on to paragraph 11.3. That would be page 15, page 15 of 33. First one there, 11.3.1. And as you attended an assessor conclave presented by South African National Accreditation System, SANAS, in Pretoria in February 2012.
Yes, my lord. These are ongoing workshops or trainings that's presented by SANAS. I have also now recalled that on page 18, I was also involved in 14.6.5, the chair of the subcommittee for the Medical Specialist Technical Committee with the task of creating accreditation for molecular biology in South Africa.
Yes. Before we get to that one, Dr. August, there's also in paragraph.
To use the word conclave.
My lord, that is a word that that SANAS calls. They call their. I would have called it a workshop. When they get assessors together, they call it an assessor conclave.
That's usually used as a gathering of cardinals who elect a new pope.
My lord, I cannot change the wording that is provided by SANAS.
Because I'm just pointing out it's rather strange use of the language.
Agreed.
So, similar in paragraph 11.3.8, also So still on page 15 of 33, Dr. August, you attended the SANAS Assessor Workshop presented
Yes.
by SANAS in May 2001.
Yes, my lord, that workshop they actually, I believe, called a SANAS Assessor Workshop.
Then paragraph 11.4, you attend no less than 4 training courses, amongst which is a lead and technical assessor presented by SANAS in 2000, 2002 and 2007 as well.
My lord, yes, I point out I was never a lead assessor. I attended, that was the name of the course of the meeting, but I never trained as a lead assessor, I only trained as a technical assessor.
Paragraph 14.6.1. That is on page 18 of 13. Since 2007 until present, you are a member of the Forensic Science Specialist Technical Committee for SANAS.
Correct.
Correct. The one that you referred to previously, paragraph 14.6.5, during 2000 to 2001, you were the chair of the subcommittee for the Medical Specialist Technical Committee of SANAS with the specific task of creating a standard for accreditation in molecular biology in South Africa.
Yes, my lord, that was when paternity labs were starting to get accredited and they needed a specific, SANAS calls it an R document or a guideline in addition to the ISO guide that translates it to our local environment.
And paragraph 14.9.1, you are a member and a coordinator of the Forensic Science Interest Group that organized the first meeting for the Forensic Science Sector in South Africa that was held in November 2016 with the aim to organize the sector and to eventually form an academy or similar body in Southern Africa that will enable forensic science professionals to be regulated.
Correct, my lord. This is an effort because the forensic science profession in South Africa is currently unregulated. So the profession is unregulated, and a group of us felt that it's necessary to get it regulated. So we came together, and by lack of a better name, we called ourselves the Forensic Science Interest Group. We then held a meeting in November last year. We then formed a Forensic Science Steering Committee, which is now in the process of writing the finding documents of this, what we hope to call academy, and then there will be a subsequent meeting, hopefully soon, is what we envisage, so that such a body can be formed and that the profession can then become a regulated profession.
So you still have to do that you're not involved with SANAS,
My lord,
the accreditation of laboratories.
what I was trying to say is I didn't start SANAS. I'm not involved on the internal part. I'm not employed by SANAS. I don't speak for SANAS. I sit on a few of their committees. I've done assessments for them. And in 14.9, the regulation of the National Committee for Forensic Science, that is not a SANAS activity. That is an activity where we as professionals feel that our professional sector should be regulated.
Dr. August, the Conformity Assessment Calibration and Good Laboratory Act, Act 19 of 2006, that is the SANAS Act, correct?
My lord, if I have it like that in my report, I do not.
No,
It sounds correct.
Does it sound correct to you?
It sounds correct to me.
This is an act that was assented to on the 12th of February 2007, and it was published in the Government Gazette number 29712 of the 16th of March 2007. This is the act that the preamble says it is to provide for an internationally recognized and effective accreditation and monitoring system for the Republic of South Africa, the Republic, by establishing SANAS as a juristic person. You are aware of this act, Dr. August?
My Lord, yes, I'm aware of the Act. Do I recall every word of the Act? Probably not anymore by this stage.
It's just interesting to note, Dr. August, that your changeover from human genetic research and your academic career to going into DNA biotech and the eventual ascension of Act 19 of 2006 seem to overlap.
My Lord, can the question just be repeated?
Yes, certainly, Ms.
You
Kelly.
moved from academic career and human genetic research around about the 2000s, beginning of 2001, when you started DNA Biotech. And then if one follows your courses and training that you attended from 2001, which is presented by SANAS, up until 2007, that is when the Act was assented to, it sort of overlaps.
My Lord, it may be so that it overlaps, but the one has nothing to do with the other. I left academia at the University of Pretoria in 2001 because they closed down the department. I then decided to start DNA Biotech. Another university approached me. I ran the Center for Genome Research and the company together for a couple of years. I failed to see what the SANAS Act, how that played any role, because in my mind it did not.
It's just that is your answer, Dr. August. It's just something that I noticed, that you now also give training, you have a specific view about accreditation.
Department.
My Lord, that answer is quite complex, and I would suggest that a senior management person of the University of Pretoria be called to answer that, because I cannot explain why a human genetics department would be closed
Okay,
during that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kelly.
Dr. August, it's just something that I picked up in the time frame of your CV and the development thereof. And the thought struck me that maybe you see accreditation and the assessment of laboratories for accreditation as something that DNA Biotech can play a role in.
My Lord, when I left academia, I literally drew up a list of the skills that I had, thinking how I can help other scientists. So this is the premise of why we started DNA Biotech. We've now expanded that to how we can help other professionals, because we also now assist legal professionals. Yes, it is all for gain, as they say. We are being paid for our services, but there's nothing sinister in this, or neither should that be implied. My company is there to deliver a service that is delivered by many other companies. We do offer advice on 17025. I don't think we've ever been paid for that. It's part of our pro bono work. We help other labs if they have a question about accreditation, if it's a veterinary lab, so I don't assess veterinary labs. So if it's a medical lab, I cannot help them because I used to assess medical labs. I can help them now since I no longer do. But when I was doing medical labs, if a veterinary lab or a plant lab or a food lab would have contacted me, I would have told them you have to have the following documentation in place or speak to this specific person at SANAS. I don't think it's wrong to play a networking role within your sector. And I certainly did not, I don't have a further.
So you are still of the honest view that accreditation is a necessity for a forensic laboratory?
My Lord, yes. I think I've answered that, and it is also mandated actually legally in other countries in our forensic science sector. Legally required.
Also, if we look at actual DNA analysis, I presume firstly that you are familiar with the use of the products Luminol and Blue Star. That the witness is familiar with the products Luminol and Blue Star. Are you familiar with that? Not in the scientific working thereof, but the concept of how it works.
My Lord, yes, as I have read in the literature, I have come across how presumptive tests are performed, and then Hemastix, Blue Star, Luminol, etc. have been mentioned.
And would you be able to comment on the fact that there is evidence on record that if one uses, as you've said, Luminol or Blue Star to do presumptive tests, firstly you do that to detect blood samples that is not visible to the naked eye, is that correct?
My Lord, that's correct. I have not spoken about Luminol or Blue Star in my report, so I'm presuming that the state is asking me about the testimony of either Captain Hubert or somebody
Dr.
else.
August, I'm just trying in general the process or the concept of Luminol and Blue Star. It is a product or products similar in operation, two different brands that are used to pick up or find microscopic blood samples that are not visible to the naked eye.
My Lord, that is how I understand it.
Do you also understand the working of Luminol and or Blue Star, that the more you spray, in other words, the more you use the product, the more you will dilute this microscopic blood sample?
My Lord, I have not used either Luminol or Blue Star, so what I know would be from theoretical sources, and given that it was not mentioned in the work that I was tasked or mandated with in this case, I have not delved into the literature of Luminol and Blue Star.
So if the witness testifies that I work with Luminol and or Blue Star on a daily basis, the way it reacts, if I keep spraying the sample, it will dilute the sample to the effect that I might not even pick up any sample. Would you be able to dispute that?
My Lord, it's outside of my field of expertise. I cannot state how. So I have never used Luminol or Blue Star. That's outside of my field of expertise. I've never used it. And so if you spray more and more, I can't comment on that.
So if a witness whose expertise is based on the use of Luminol and Blue Star testifies to that effect, would you be able to dispute it?
My Lord, if the witness...
My Lord, I must object. She says she doesn't know. There's a similar way that Ms. Galloway objected in some of the cross-examination of
Thank you.
she says she doesn't know. She's answered that question. She cannot answer about a field that she doesn't have expertise in.
I will leave it at that, Your Honor. Now, Dr. August, then with regard further to DNA evidence, do you agree that DNA evidence in actual fact consists of two main parts? It is the actual analysis of the biological sample, which includes the whole scientific process of isolating and then eventually mapping the DNA markers and then noting the variability of the repeats used in the alleles, correct? The actual analysis, the science part.
My Lord, I was asked that whether I agree that the DNA analysis profiling process consists of, or that DNA analysis consists of two parts. I heard about the analysis part.
I'm getting to that. The first part is the science part of the August, and the second part is the statistics part, where you do the comparison based on the population database.
My Lord, there's analysis, and then there is interpretation, and then there is conclusion, and then within that conclusion, the statistics may feature, correct?
And the statistics part thereof is not to show the court that the donor of the specific DNA profile is the specific person, but just to tell the court what are the probabilities of it being somebody else.
My Lord, I agree that it is not to state identity, but it does work with probabilities.
The probabilities of the donor of the sample being someone else. It's trying to explain to the court that it is so small that the court can safely accept it cannot be somebody else.
My Lord, that would be almost a statement of exclusion. So, so if we were to assume that the DNA profiles are valid, scientifically valid, the interpretation is valid, and the conclusion is valid, then one would have to ask yourself whether whatever number is generated, 1 in 70 trillion or whatever the number is, that is also valid. But it starts with the DNA profile. And Lord, I need one moment to just realize or decide if I should answer something now that is probably still going to come up, but since I cannot foresee what is going to come up for the state, I want to say that in this case, 9 STR markers were used. 9 STR markers. My Lord, if I may, after my own testimony, I realized that I could have made it more clear to the court. And if I may hand in a single page, it is of one of the tables in Lieutenant Colonel Otto's affidavit. And I apologize, my Lord, I just have to find it.
Well, I see. Maybe a turn for the lunch.
That's good.